Welcome to this explainer. Okay, I am absolutely thrilled to share this one with you today. We're going to unpack a truly captivating mystery, a story about a cemetery groundskeeper, an impossible, decades-long anomaly, and an encounter that completely defies all logic. It's a fascinating look at what real devotion looks like. So let's just jump right in, shall we? Let's kick things off by introducing Elias. He's been the groundskeeper at Blackwood Cemetery for 40 years. And, he's got this very practical, maybe slightly grumpy worldview. He always says the dead were mostly quiet, it was the living who caused all the trouble. Honestly, if you've ever worked in customer service, you probably hit the nail right on the head with that one. But as we're about to see, that deeply held practical mindset of his, it's about to be completely shattered by something that doesn't really belong to the living or the departed. Moving on to Section 1, the quiet graveyard, setting the scene at Blackwood Cemetery. So, right near the eastern wall of the cemetery, there lies this grave that is literally nothing more than a simple, flat slab of slate. No names, no dates, no epitaphs, nothing. It is ancient, and the edges are completely softened by centuries of rain and creeping moss. But here's where it gets weird. In stark contrast to that total anonymity, this is the most meticulously tended grave in the entire place. Why? Because every single morning, without fail, a fresh sprig of blue hydrangea is laid right in the dead center of that slate slab. Which brings us to Section 2, an impossible floral mystery, a decades-long anomaly. Now, initially, Elias took the practical route. He figured, okay, this is just a grieving descendant keeping up an old family tradition. Makes sense, right? But then, years turned into decades. A human simply couldn't keep this up. Picture the dead of winter. The ground is frozen completely solid. There isn't a single flower blooming for 100 miles in any direction, and yet, boom, the fresh blue hydrangea is there. Even after torrential storms that turn the cemetery gates into literal impassable mud pits, that flower would be sitting there the very next morning. So, what does this all mean? It brings us to the ultimate question. Someone, or something, was visiting this anonymous grave every single night. But who? After decades of just watching this happen, on the very eve of his retirement, Elias's curiosity finally got the better of him. He just had to know. All right, Section 3, the midnight stakeout. The eve of retirement. Picture this. Elias brews a massive thermos of black coffee, bundles himself up in his thick wool coat, and takes a seat on a stone bench about 50 yards away. He's perfectly hidden in the heavy shadows of a weeping willow. And the atmosphere? It is intensely chilling. It wasn't just dark, it was bitterly cold. Right around midnight, this thick, creeping fog rolls in, swallowing up the headstones until they look like the jagged teeth of some massive sleeping beast. And the silence? It's absolute. You know that kind of heavy silence that literally rings in your ears? Then it hits 3:15 a.m. Suddenly, the temperature abruptly drops even further. Elias's breath actually hitches in his throat. He knows it. After 40 years of waiting, the mystery has finally arrived. And here is Section 4, the spectral sentinel. A figure emerges. Elias is squinting through this dense gray mist. A figure starts to emerge, and this is the crazy part, it makes absolutely no sound against the dry autumn leaves. It doesn't even displace the fog as it moves, it just glides right through it. As his heart is hammering against his ribs, he realizes what he's actually looking at. It wasn't a grieving descendant. It wasn't a person at all. It was a hound. In a single second, our whole story shifts from a weird human mystery to a profoundly supernatural encounter. And guys, this wasn't just any regular dog. We're talking about a massive, translucent mastiff. Its fur shimmered with this faint, silvery luminescence in the dark, and right there, held in its heavy jaws, it carried a single, perfectly intact stem of blue hydrangea. The flower was actually glowing with this ethereal, impossible color against the pitch-black night. No way, right? Watch what happens next. The spectral dog approaches the slab, gently lowers its massive head, and drops that glowing flower dead center. But it doesn't just turn around and leave. For a long moment, it just lies down. It rests its heavy chin on the cold stone in this completely silent vigil. Then it lets out a faint, breathless sigh. A sigh that actually rustles the dead autumn leaves on the ground. And then, as quietly as it had appeared, it dissolves entirely back into the fog. Which leads us to our final part, Section 5, Loyalty Beyond Time, Eternal Devotion. So, Elias just sits there completely frozen on that bench until the morning sun finally breaks the horizon and burns away the mist. He slowly walks over to the unmarked grave, and there, resting on the slate, is the fresh blue hydrangea. But you know what? He chooses not to pick it up. Instead, he simply reaches down, gently brushes away a little patch of creeping moss and dead leaves, and just turns back to his cabin. Because he realizes in that moment, he is merely a caretaker. The true guardian had already paid their respects. This incredible encounter redefines loyalty entirely. For Elias, the realization is crystal clear. Some loyalties are absolutely not bound by something as trivial as time. It's just a remarkably beautiful meditation on a bond between a hound and its master, a bond that centuries of rain, moss, and time literally could not erase. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to reflect on today. What connections do you have that might outlast time itself? It's an awe-inspiring reminder of the power of bonds that transcend not just distance, but life and death. Thank you so much for exploring this incredible mystery with us today. Keep seeking out those fascinating stories, and we'll catch you next time.